Well, thank you very much, Nicholas. It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks again to Reed Corporate for putting on another fantastic event. Given the negative market sentiment for nickel and the fact that we are probably the only company here that has nickel in its name, I probably felt like at first I need to make an admission and a confession here. So, hi, my name's Todd Ross. I'm a nickel explorer, and I've got 15 minutes before you disappear for lunch to convince you why we believe our unique strategy is going to deliver significant returns for shareholders over the coming months. So Nordic Nickel, we are exploring the world's newest major nickel district, and it's an area that's elephant country, and we've got a very big land package. The usual disclaimer for your leisure. So Nordic Nickel, we are focused on becoming a sustainable battery metal supplier to tap into growing demand coming out of Europe. We have 2 district-scale nickel-copper exploration projects. Our Pulu project, which is our flagship project, is prospective for both high-grade massive sulfides, but extensive nickel, disseminated nickel mineralisation. We released a maiden resource 6 weeks after listing. We listed on the 1st of June 2022, and based on historical exploration work and drilling that had been done by Outokumpu in Finland back in the 80s and 90s, we were able to release a maiden resource, as I said, 6 weeks after listing. That maiden resource is 133 million tonnes, containing 278,000 tonnes of nickel and 12,500 tonnes of cobalt. Since then, that was based on 10,000 metres of drilling. We've drilled another 15,500 metres at our Hot and Vara licence, which I'll show you a bit more about in a minute. Geophysics is key to unlocking the potential in this part of the world, and after listing in June 2022, we spent the first 6 months doing an extensive geophysics program, and we continued on with that last year, and we've identified several new target areas within that Pulu project that we still haven't tested yet. We've got a highly credentialed team, both in Finland and in Australia, who have all got extensive experience, including Julian Hanna, who you may have come across previously, who was the Managing Director of Western Areas, and then Mod Resources before they got taken out by Sandfire. We have a mineral processing study underway, which will be key to unlocking the potential of our projects. And we completed our first maiden drilling campaign, 15,500 metres last year. We're now looking at building out that exploration potential in the belt, and one of the other exciting news that came out for Nordic Nickel last year is we were selected by BHP to be one of the 7 in the inaugural BHP Explore program. That was a great confidence boost for us, given the company was only 5 months old at the time. BHP saw the potential, and we're continuing to have discussions with them about future joint venture arrangements. So our strategy, very simply, we're focused on critical minerals at a critical time. While the outlook for nickel, and in particular for Class 1 nickel, hasn't changed. There's huge demand coming. While we may see some oversupply coming through the market at the moment from Indonesian nickel, the focus in Europe is very much on Class 1 nickel and sustainably sourced ESG compliant nickel. Securing supply in Europe has become a major strategic priority. And the EU Critical Minerals Act, which was enacted last year, is just the starting point for Europe to now try and focus very heavily on securing local supply. Finland has a long mining history and is certainly incentivising battery metals projects in that part of the world. The Central Lapland Greenstone Belt, where we're operating, as I said, is elephant country. It hasn't been a domain for junior exploration companies much in the past. It's predominantly been the majors that have been operating there and very much keeping under the radar. We've secured 515 square kilometre land package in that part of the world, and we've got a big exploration program to undertake. So the energy transition in Europe, as you would all be aware, Europe has stated that it's looking to become zero carbon economy by 2050. Securing sustainable sourced and traceable supply of critical minerals is a priority in Europe. The EU Critical Minerals, the EU Critical Minerals Act, you can think of like the Inflation Reduction Act in the US. That is their answer to securing their supply. and it is the first step in their process of establishing supply chains within Europe to deliver into the OEMs and the battery manufacturers that are being built in Europe. Strategic projects in Europe will be given priority, and that means fast-tracked. So what may have taken 10 years in the past to develop a project, the aim was to deliver them in 3 to 5 years. Nickel has been identified as one of the 34 top critical minerals, and the battery passport, which is another regulation that's being implemented by 2030, will require all EVs in Europe to meet a pre-agreed criteria to deliver into the market. What all this means is there's trillions of dollars of investment going on in Europe for building not only the gigafactories that have been constructed all around, the battery chemistries that are being developed, but the demand for critical minerals, in particular for nickel, is expected to increase by 275%. 10% of all raw materials now need to be sourced in Europe. So at the moment, there are 2 operating nickel mines in Europe, and that's it. And they're both in Finland. One is 100 kilometres away from us. There's less than 10% of raw materials that are actually being produced in in Europe in total at the moment. We're looking to become and position ourselves to become a major supplier into the energy transition market in Europe. In addition, 40% of all material needs to be processed in Europe, and then there's 15% needs to be recycled. There's a big demand coming, and the recognition is clearly about ESG, sustainably sourced critical minerals. So the Nordic region where we're operating, it is becoming a hub for battery metals production and battery cell manufacturing. Overall, the Nordics account for about 20% of all the gigafactories that are being constructed in the European region. And as I said, there are only 2 operating nickel mines, both within close distance to us. The value chain for nickel production already exists in Finland, and in fact all the smelting and refining capacity for nickel is all in either Finland or Norway. That's it. So our projects, the Central Lapland Greenstone Belt, we have 2 projects, as I said. Our flagship project, which is 100% owned Pulu nickel projects. It is district scale. It's a rich nickel system. It has both shallow disseminated nickel mineralisation as well as high-grade massive sulphides. There was 10,000 metres, as I mentioned, of drilling that was undertaken by Outokumpu back in the 80s and 90s at our main licence area, which is only 5 square kilometres of our 240 square kilometre land package, and we've since drilled another 15,500 metres there. The geophysics in this area is very similar to the Sakatti deposit. Sakatti is a discovery that was made by Anglo American about 10 years ago, and it's also 100 kilometres away from where our project is. Sakatti has been kept relatively under the radar by Anglo American. Their resource that was put out in 2016 is 44 million tonnes, 1.9% copper and 1% nickel. By any standard, that's a major discovery that was made. They've since drilled, and they've had 6 drill rigs on that deposit for the last 6 years. They haven't updated the resource because their environmental permitting was based on that 44 million tonnes. That environmental permit was granted last year. We're expecting to see some updates to that resource this year. And we use the same drilling contractors and the same drill rigs. So we have a fair bit of knowledge about what's going on there. As I said, we completed our maiden drilling campaign last year. We have 2 granted exploration licences, the Hotanvara licence, which you can see in the bottom of the blue area, the Pulu project. The black outline to the bottom is the Hotanvara licence. The one in the middle, the black area, is called Hotanvara. A little confusing, but they're the names that were given to it from the Finns, and that's what we're going to stick to. Both of them highly prospective for both near-surface disseminated nickel, but also the high-grade potential. Our second project is called Munikioki 3, which is an earn-in that we have over that area. You cannot get new ground in that part of the world. It's 13 kilometres away from the Sakatti deposit. So the highlights of the Pulu project, well, from the geophysics that we've done, the magnetic surveys that we've run, we've done a high-scale UAV mag survey across the belt. We see that there's at least 35 kilometres of prospective mineralised strike across that area. So we've got the district lateral continuity, but we've also got the vertical continuity. We drilled 3 deep holes last year and showed that they've got mineralisation down to at least 1,100 metres. From a district scale perspective, this is what our project looks like. It's huge. This is the mapped ultramafic intrusion, the green area. The blue area is where our current resource is. And if you look at it in the scale against other projects around the world, it's a very, very big system. We believe we're onto mining camp potential here. Not only was there 10,000 metres drilled by the Kumpu to the south, now we've drilled the extra 15,000 metres, but there's another 6,000 metres to the north of us that confirms that mineralised strike. Nickel and copper potential and mineralisation that's been intersected throughout that area. 35 kilometres of prospective strike, as I said. So the Hottenvara prospect, this is the little area to the south of the bottom of our exploration tenements, 5 square kilometres, 2% of our land holding. We have over 1,700 of untested prospective strike. Our exploration targets and our strategy remains to be focused on high-grade potential, and we've seen that in the drilling results this year, but also the disseminated nickel mineralisation, which will continue to build out our resource. Some of the historical drill results, which we can talk through in if you want to come and see me at the booth afterwards, but we saw some very wide intersections of disseminated nickel. But what got us all excited was the high-grade potential, up to 9% in some of the nickel intersects that was done historically, and last year we saw up to 8% nickel. The resource estimate that we have, the 278,000 tonnes of nickel, will grow substantially. The work plan is that we'll have an update of that mineral resource out in the next few months, and we'll then back that up not long after that with our met test work, which is a metallurgical test work program that we've kicked off now as well. So our drilling campaign, sorry, it's a bit of a busy slide here, but we drilled 15,500 metres, 28 holes. We intersected some very wide zones of disseminated nickel mineralisation, which were step out from the existing resource area, 500 metres away in that mag anomaly that sits to the southeast of our deposit. And that's seen lots of mineralisation there. We've also seen some stringer mineralisation and some high-grade massive sulphides amongst that, which we've released the results on. Some of the highlights, again, that I can take you through if you want to come past the booth. The growth potential in this area, and again, this is just 2% of our land holding, is massive. We've got multiple geophysical targets that we haven't been able to test yet. We'll be getting back in there this winter. Best time to drill in Finland is in winter, minus 25 or so at the moment, but it means it gives you access to everywhere you want to go. There's a lot of swampy areas in Finland. When the ground's frozen, obviously it's a lot easier to drive a rig across and get it into the zones that you want to test. We have multiple targets outside of the resource. As I said, we flew a drone survey over the region last year, and we identified, just at a high level, based on a combination of the magnetic highs, the mapped ultramafic intrusions, and the historical drilling that had been done previously, that we have at least another 9 areas of similar size, if not bigger, than the Hottenvara licence area, where we already have that maiden resource of 278,000 tonnes of nickel. The plan for this year is to get in and start drilling again at Hottenvara. We've identified a lot of areas that we want to test again on those geophysics targets. The same at the Hottenvara licence, an area that's never been drilled before, but Anglo American had previously done some bottom of till sampling where there was some copper and nickel, some reasonably high grade copper and nickel anomalies that were detected. Our news flow, as I said, we've got a resource that will be coming out, an updated resource that will be coming out in the next few weeks. We'll get our met test results out in Q2. We commence our next phase of the drilling campaign and exploration for this year. We're talking to lots of strategic partners, including BHP, about what future arrangements we could look at there. We're getting lots of attention from major car manufacturers as well, who are all looking to secure their supply in that part of the region. And again, they're looking for that sustainable source of nickel, copper, cobalt, and we have a lot of that as well. Our share price has taken a battering. We listed at 25 cents. We're down to 13 cents at the moment. We've got about 2.9 million cash in the bank, around a market cap of $16 million, with lots of upside for shareholders. We're looking at unlocking the potential of what we believe to be one of the world's newest major nickel sulphide districts in Europe. We have a resource that will be coming out soon. We've got lots of strategic partners that we're talking to. we're in a tier 1 jurisdiction. We're positioned to be able to really take advantage of a massive growth opportunity in Europe. So happy to come and, if you want to come and have a chat to me afterwards in the booth, please do so. So thanks for your time.